it's getting nice out and we're all kind of coming out of our winter hibernation and maybe seeing people and getting together just to grill or hang out or whatever. So I thought maybe some apps that people could bring to their little gatherings.
Welcome to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of everyday living in the Midwest. From the blog Random Sweets, I'm your host, Stacy Mergenthal. It's almost summer, which means pool and lake parties, family reunions, picnics, camping for some of you, not me, and smoking out the neighborhood with your backyard grilling. It's also time to dig out your library card, visit your local indie bookstore, and pack your beach bag with books on your want-to-read list. Today, I'm bringing back my friend and book goals hero, Christianne Beringer. And first, we are talking about easy appetizers and sides that are delicious enough for sharing, like creamy red pepper dip, BLT dip, and her green beans with lemon and toasted almonds. Then Christianne catches us up on and inspires me with her reading goals, and she tells us about new authors and book series that she's been enjoying lately, including the one that she likes so much she's started checking out 2 at a time from the library. So if you're wondering where the books are, we also talk about the handy book recommendation and discovery website and app called Goodreads, which she and I both use to keep track of books that we want to read, books we've read, and also to browse what's on our friends' bookshelves as well. So if you're someone who likes simple recipes and celebrates the joy of finishing a good book, this episode is for you, and I'm just so glad that you chose to be here with us today. I posted the 5 recipes that Christianne shares on my website, randomsweets.com. The link is in the show notes, along with links to my favorite book and reading resources. Some of them we talk about today, some of them we don't, but they include Goodreads, Hoopla, Libby, Thrift Books, Abe Books, and Midwest independent booksellers. So now let's go find out why both she and I want a t-shirt that says, "We'll read for pizza." Christianne, welcome to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens, your 3rd episode.
Yes, oh my gosh.
You've been on the podcast more than anyone else.
Yay.
Well, I guess Jason's been on probably 3 times. Yeah, we did do. But anyway, your 3rd episode, you were my very first remote recorded episode. So I had done some episodes by myself. Then I went to my dad's and did an episode there with him. And then you and I were the first remote ones. So I was still trying to learn audio. I was still trying to learn remote, and I use something totally different now, so I think this will be fine. But today you came to my house in person, so I'm even more excited to see you.
Oh, I know. I'm so excited that I'm here.
Let's see. So in that first episode, you talked about your mom's meatloaf and your grandma's macaroni and cheese. We talked a little bit about reading. And so if somebody hasn't listened to that episode yet, they should go back and look and at least get the recipes online.
Yes.
Because that ketchup sauce, I still am like, I need to just make the ketchup sauce for anything.
Right?
Not just on meatloaf. It's so good.
Yeah, I love it.
And then the second episode you came back was last summer. So July 2023.
Yes.
We talked about 80. No, not 80. Well, we did talk about 80 honey farms, of course. But we talked about Bruce Honey Days with your mom.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun.
Well, for people who haven't listened to like that first episode, we kind of just introduced yourself a little bit and talked about your family. Why don't you just do that quick just to catch people up?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Christianne. I'm a wife and a mom. My son is almost 16. I know.
Preston.
And my daughter's almost 13. And it's crazy. And I don't see them very much anymore because they're off busy doing all kinds of things. But I love it. And they're doing great. But yeah.
What sports are they in?
So Preston does golf and wrestling and track, and Lillian does basketball and volleyball and golf, but then she also does orchestra and band and Orland Terp, and yeah, busy.
Got to keep them busy to keep them out of trouble. You and I know that, right?
Yes, exactly.
From when we were teenagers.
Oh, yeah.
And you golf.
I do. I golf. My husband golfs. We both do. He does a men's league. I do a women's league. A good friend of mine that I was in guards with. She's my partner every year. And oh my gosh, I don't even know how many years we've been golfing together now. But my Thursday nights in my summer, that's what I look forward to.
That's where we can find you.
Yes.
Volga, right? At the Volga?
Nope, we're in Brookings.
Oh, you are in Brookings. Yep. Okay. I don't know why I thought Volga. Maybe because you work there. I don't know why.
Everyone thinks I live in Volga. Nope, just work there. I moved to the big city,
To Brookings. But your parents are in Volga. Is that right?
My parents are in Volga. My sister and her husband and kids are in Volga. And I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. So today, I was like, come back and share some more recipes. And I know you have so many, so you're still going to come back again and again and again. And But today we're going to talk about apps and sides.
Yeah.
And a little bit about reading and some books to catch up from your last year's goals. And I want to see, I haven't asked or talked to you about that. So should we start with recipes?
Yeah, sure.
Let's start with the recipes. And do you have 5? Is that what you had today?
Yes.
Okay. Well, start wherever you want and let's share some recipes with everybody.
Okay. Yeah, I just trying to think of what to share initially. And I thought, you know what, it's getting nice out and we're all kind of coming out of our winter hibernation and maybe seeing people and getting together just to grill or hang out or whatever. So I thought maybe some apps that people could bring to their little gatherings. One of my absolute favorites is a creamy red pepper dip. And it's roasted red peppers, and you drain them and kind of dry them off and chop them up.
Hold on. I'm already going to stop you. Roasted red peppers that you buy, like in a jar?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not roasting
picturing myself roasting red peppers and then... Okay.
Nobody's
cool.
got time
So we're
for that.
starting with a jar of roasted peppers.
A 7-ounce jar, which I don't think they actually... I've never found a 7-ounce jar.
Oh, seriously?
But then you can just double it or keep the red peppers and make it again when you run out.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm just asking.
Nope. The red peppers, and then you add some garlic and some fresh basil leaves that you just kind of thinly slice, and the usual suspects: sour cream, mayonnaise, a little bit of Worcestershire.
Let's all say it together now, folks. Worcestershire
sauce.
Worcestershire.
Yeah, a little bit of salt, and you just mix all of that together. I usually do ahead of time and just kind of let it sit for a little bit. You don't really have to, but everything's always good when it kinda sits and melds for a little bit. And then you can serve it with veggies. I like doing cucumber and carrots and celery and just kind of your usual veggie tray items. My recipe says crackers, but I really like it with tortilla chips. Kind of a nice, usually I always have tortilla chips because someone's making like buffalo chicken dip or some kind of dip that goes with tortilla chips. So this is just another one that you've already got the chips.
Yeah.
You can eat it with that dip. And yeah, it's one of my favorite dips.
Are you just stirring everything together? Or are you doing like a blender thing or it's just
Nope, just
stirring
stir
it up?
everything together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the roasted red pepper.
Yes, and then another favorite that I have is Southwest dip. So this is also with a tortilla chip situation. It's a package of cream cheese, sour cream, and you get pepperonis and chopped green chilies and a little bit of chopped onion, and you can throw in some chopped chives if you want. That's completely optional. And then you need to have chopped pecans as well. And you mix up everything except those pecans. So soften your cream cheese so that you can mix it all up and dice up your pepperonis and throw in your can of green chilies. Don't drain it.
Oh, okay.
Leave it undrained and throw that in there. But you mix everything up and put it in a baking dish. And then you top it with your chopped pecans. And then you're just going to bake it for 20 minutes.
Oh, it's a hot dip. No seasoning in it?
No.
And between the peppers and the pepperoni and everything, it just gives it some good flavor.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the good hot ones.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites. I made it like one random Sunday afternoon. I think Dustin and I were watching football and I had everything and I was like, I'm going to make Southwest dip. We hadn't had it in forever and so we just snacked on that.
How big of a batch does that make? Like what size pan are you putting it in?
So I have kind of one of those small oval Pampered Chef
the baker stoneware
dishes,
kind
just
of?
the small oval one. It doesn't make a ton. So if, you'd spread it out in kind of a larger round baking dish and it'd probably be a little bit thinner, but you could double it and make it in a bigger dish if you have a bigger crowd.
So how long do you bake it? Because when you put pecans on the top.
It's just 20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And that kind of just warms everything up and lets that cream cheese kind of get melty and good. And I suppose it probably toasts the pecans a little bit, but...
Could you use summer sausage, do you think, if you wanted to use summer sausage?
I think you could.
I mean...
That might be pretty good.
Sliced it up pretty thin. Cool. Snack time!
Yes. So my next one that I want to share, and this is actually a really funny story. So it's a recipe for a BLT dip.
Okay.
But this started as BLT bites. And it's a recipe I got from my mom. And it's really, really, really good. But when you make it, you have to take cherry tomatoes or grape tomatoes and core them out to stuff the dip into the tomatoes.
So it's time consuming.
Very time consuming.
And messy.
Yes. Because those tomatoes are not very big.
Yeah.
When you're making this. I had made it. We went to a friend's house. We were just grilling and hanging out. And I made that. And they were all super, super impressed. And I said, I love you guys, but I'm never making these again. And then thankfully, my mom found this BLT dip, which is essentially all the same ingredients, but you just mix it all up and eat it with some crackers.
Yeah.
So it's, super quick and easy. It's just sour cream and mayonnaise. And you throw in some shredded cheddar cheese and you chop up your tomatoes and toss them in there. And you add some bacon and then you can top it with some green onion and add that in there. But yeah, you just combine everything and just keep it in the refrigerator until you serve it. And just, grab your favorite crackers and BLT on a cracker.
That's a really easy one too. And speaking of, you said you went to a party or a get together. I mean, we all kind of know that trick of when you have a dip like that to put a bigger bowl of ice.
Yep.
And then set that bowl of dip in there and just put your lid on that thing so that it stays cold and easy. It's easy then to bring somewhere and
very easy.
Cool. So does your mom make it like that then too now?
Yeah, I don't think she does the BLT bites anymore either. It's really, really good, but you have to have a lot of patience. And
deviled eggs are about the only thing I'll take the time to tear out insides.
Right. And my husband makes those, so I don't even have to do that.
Right.
So.
And you could easily turn that into a dip too.
I have recipes that my kids like that require me to stuff shells or different things that. And every once in a while, they'll be out of like the jumbo stuffed shells. Mm-hmm. So I'll just buy like the bigger like shell macaroni.
Yeah.
And I just kind of turn it into a little hot dish instead
without
of
having to stuff them. Yeah.
It's like it's the same thing. It's just saving me time of having to stuff a shell.
So from now on, you could just tell your kids that they were out at the grocery store. Funny thing, they don't make them anymore.
Right.
Are there any ingredients that you can't use? Like you just know, I cannot make this dish because Lillian and Preston will not eat it.
Pretty much every vegetable.
Seriously?
They will eat corn and they will eat green beans, which I'm going to talk about my green beans that I make that I can actually get them to eat. But yeah, like I have Brussels sprouts. I have a recipe for Brussels sprouts that I really like to make. They won't touch them. I have kind of a pan-fried kale that I love to do. They won't touch it. I grew up in a house that you have to try it before you can say that you don't like it, before you can move on with your life. You have to try it.
Yeah.
There were probably a lot of nights that I sat at that table for a very long time.
And by then the food is cold and it's not going to be good anyway.
Yes. So, of course, now as a mom, I'm telling my children, like, just eat it and get it out of the way because it's so much better when it's warm.
Right. Just take that bite and you can decide whether you like it or not. I mean, as adults, we're the same way. I am 50 some. I don't remember how old I am. Christianne birthday in February. I think I'm 52. And I've never had Brussels sprouts. But I'd be willing to try them because I like broccoli and cabbage. Right. So I maybe would like them depending on how they're cooked.
I never really liked Brussels sprouts either. But then we were at a restaurant. I think it was at the Ram years ago, obviously.
Yeah.
And whatever I ordered came with a side of Brussels sprouts, and it had this balsamic vinaigrette glaze on it.
Sure.
And I think there might have been bacon or something in there.
Of course.
And I find myself a lot where I'll go to a restaurant and it's like, I can make this at home.
Okay.
I need to try and make this at home. And so I found it, and we usually do it on the grill. We have a veggie grill pan. And I just toss the Brussels sprouts with some pancetta and olive oil and salt and pepper and throw them on the grill. And then I top it off with that balsamic glaze. Mm-hmm. And I love them. But yeah, my kids won't touch them.
And you know what? They might when they're older. That's what I found with Kalani and Sajin. They'll eat things that they never used to. They'll try things when they wouldn't before.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'll probably, Kalani's even tried mushrooms now. Good for her. She does not like them. She's like, why would you? It's like eating a sponge.
Right. So I just every once in a while, it's like, okay, let's give it another shot.
Okay.
Just try a bite. And if you don't like it, we'll move on. And so I do that with supper a lot of times. I mean, there's new recipes that I will try sometimes, or halfway through the meal, one of the kids will admit, like, this isn't really my favorite. I really don't like this. And it's like, that's fine. You know where the bread and the peanut butter and the jelly is. Like, go make yourself a sandwich. Go find something else. I've already cooked a meal.
Yeah.
If you don't want to eat it, that is entirely fine.
Yeah.
Go find something else. Speaking of the vegetables that my children will eat, one of the recipes I really wanted to talk about, and this is super fun. There's a fun story. We call it Aunt Clara's corn.
Okay.
We have no idea who Aunt Clara is.
She's not an aunt in your family.
And if I'm remembering correctly, and to my aunt and uncle in Kansas City, if you happen to listen to this, you can maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that Aunt Clara might have been the aunt of one of my uncle's girlfriends years ago.
Oh.
Didn't keep the girlfriend, kept the recipe. Which we're very grateful for, because this is a staple. We just had it for Easter. We did Easter supper instead of an Easter brunch. And we had Clara's corn, and I think we probably had it at Christmas. We have it at Thanksgiving. I've made it for Super Bowl parties. I've made it for 4th of July.
Wow.
We make this all the time. It's kind of like a scalloped corn.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
But I don't really care for scalloped corn. This one's better.
Okay.
So you're going to take a can of corn, not drained, and a can of cream style corn, and mix those together, and you're going to add a half a stick of melted butter, a box of cornbread mix, and then a cup of sour cream.
Like a Jiffy cornbread mix?
Yep.
Like that? Okay.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
the Jiffy cornbread mix. And you're going to mix that all together, and you're going to put it in your casserole dish. I usually grease it. Give it a quick spray just so nothing sticks. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to top it with shredded cheddar cheese.
Oh, yum.
Yeah.
Cheese and corn.
Yeah.
Thank you, Clara.
Yep. I don't know who you are, Clara, but we love your corn.
Nice.
So it's a 375 degree oven, and you do 35 to 45 minutes. And you usually have to do kind of closer to the 45 minutes and check it, because sometimes it can still be a little jiggly when you take it out. So it's usually pretty close to that 45 minute. Mm-hmm. The funny part is, my sister is the one who usually makes this now. So we have our holiday gatherings, and my dad will take care of whatever meat he's going to put on the Traeger. Mm-hmm. And my mom will take care of most of the sides. Like our Easter conversation, Mom said, we'll do the meat and the potatoes. You guys figure out appetizers and another side dish. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Clara's corn is definitely in my sister's wheelhouse. I love her dearly, but she doesn't really care for cooking or baking or any of those things. So we have to find simple things for her to do. And then I'll come up with something. But it's pretty much Nicole takes care of the corn. So much so that we decided on Easter that we're going to rename this Aunt Cole's corn. My kids call my sister, her name is Nicole.
Oh,
my kids call her Cole.
Oh.
And my grandparents used to call her Cole. My grandpa always called her Cola Bear. I don't know if she wants the world to know that, but they do now. So
Sorry,
we
Nicole.
decided I'm going to have to like rename my recipe card that I have here
Yeah.
to Aunt Cole's corn.
Well, because she's the one that's making it, and that's how everybody's enjoying it. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
And the story can still go along with that, right?
Yeah. We're revamping it and changing it for our family. Yeah, it's funny. And, you know, my sister doesn't cook, but I do have a couple of recipes from her that she's, you know, she has a copycat Olive Garden Alfredo sauce. And so I make that when we do Alfredo. And it's funny because Preston will start to kind of complain about what I'm going to make for supper. But then if I say it's Aunt Cole's recipe, then apparently I'm making the greatest thing on the face of the planet because Aunt Cole is an amazing cook.
And she has, what, 4 recipes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well. If I get him to eat it, I don't care how.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, exactly. Right. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I think my sister Heidi, so my mom had always been, well, she always, when we were growing up for the holidays, she would make a scallop corn. So like what you're talking about, probably, I think has saltine crackers or something in there, right? Does that sound right?
Yep.
Okay. Because I was never the one that did the corn. And then I think my sister Heidi, though, when she makes it, she's doing this Jiffy cornbread mix and some sour cream. And so she's bringing the corn to the party. And so it'd be Aunt Heidi's corn.
Yeah,
okay.
It's one of our favorite. My kids don't really care for it, so I don't make it a ton at home unless I'm going to have other people over to help me eat this entire casserole dish of corn.
Right. Right. But
I
so
love it.
easy, though. I mean, yeah.
Very easy.
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty much consistently, I can get my kids to eat green beans, which is weird that it's green beans, but I can get them to eat green beans. So we eat green beans a lot. And when I first was like, okay, I'm not doing canned green beans because I don't like those at all.
Whole different thing.
They are.
Whole different thing.
Completely different. It's got to be fresh green beans, or if they're looking a little sad in the produce aisle, I will go get just frozen green beans, and I'll use those because those are pretty good.
Yeah.
But this is a super, super simple. You just trim your green beans and you're going to put them in a pan with like a 1/2 inch of water. Like bring that water to a boil, add your green beans in there, and then cover them and reduce the heat and let it cook for like 4 minutes. So not very long. And then you're going to drain them and you're going to put it back in the pan. And then I add like a tablespoon of butter, some lemon juice, and a little salt and pepper. And if I'm feeling fancy, I will take the time to toast some almonds to top it with. My kids don't like that part, so I usually just don't even do that anymore. So the first few times I made this, they didn't like it. There was something about it when they ate it that it was just, I don't know. And we finally figured out that they didn't like the lemon. It was too much for them.
Well, compared to the school lunch, green beans.
Right.
I mean, it's going to taste a little different.
Well, when I'm making these, I need the lemon in there.
Yeah.
I like it. So I told them that I wouldn't put lemon in the green beans when I made them the next time, but I did.
And then you told them that it was Nicole's recipe, right?
Well, I used less.
Okay.
I didn't use as much. Just a hint of lemon. And then I just kind of gradually built up to my normal amount of lemon. And then they realized, like, this is really good. Did you do something different? And I said, well, there's lemon in there now. But there's been lemon the whole time.
You've just been adjusting their flavor profile for like
just
a year.
Easing them into it gently. So now they can eat it with my lemon. So I'll do the salt and pepper. My mom went on a trip with my aunt, her sister-in-law, and they went to Austria and kind of all over the place. And my mom brought back this Austrian salt that has like some other herbs. I can't read anything on the label, so I don't really know what's in it. But I'll sprinkle that on there sometimes instead of just using the regular salt.
Yum.
And then just this last Christmas, we went down to Kansas City. Whole big family, all 10 of us went down and invaded my aunt and uncle's house. Went to a Chiefs game. We went to Union Station. We went all over the place and just kind of checked out Kansas City at Christmas. And we went to, I think it's called the City Market. It's like a marketplace in downtown Kansas City. And kind of like a farmer's market type of situation, but they have all these little shops and restaurants and different things. And Dustin and I found ourselves in this spice store.
Oh.
And I went back and I was looking. It's called Tikka House.
Okay.
And I think they have kind of a little restaurant too that you can get Indian food. But it was just like a whole wall and just bins of spices. And it was like $3 for a scoop.
Wow.
Of these spices. And they had saffron and
Jeez.
all kinds of stuff. And my mom forgot to get me paprika when she was passing through Hungary. And so I saw that they had Hungarian paprika. And I was like, oh, we got to get some of that. And we're kind of looking around. And there was this woman, I think she could tell that we were overwhelmed and had no idea what we were doing. So she kind of stepped over to us and said, have you been here? Do you know what you're doing? And we're like, no, we have no idea. She said, you grab a clipboard, and they had like a sheet of sticky labels.
Okay.
And you just write down what you want on each label. And then you hand it to them, and they fill up a little bag with your scoop, and they put the sticker on there.
Oh,
and
they
you go
do it
and
for
pay.
you.
Yeah. So we found like a KC steak rub type seasoning. And the lady said, you have to get Diddy Bop. And we said, okay. And she's telling us, I bought it for some of my friends and gave it to them for Christmas. And I have to keep coming back and getting more for them. She said, I put it on everything. We have no idea what is in this.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask is how do you know what like if you wanted to remake it at home, if you got Diddy Bop and it's gone now and you're not going to Kansas City anytime soon,
right?
How do you know how to mix them? But they just don't have that available.
Yeah, I have no idea what it is. So I think my only solution is just going to have to, hey, Don and Shelly, on your next trip up, can you swing through there and grab me some Diddy Bop?
Is it a place that you can order online? Do you know?
I think so. I was trying to look, and they only have a Facebook page, so I don't know if they really do shipping or anything like that. But I mean, my parents are down there often enough, and my aunt and uncle come home often enough that we could probably get some more. But we got one other one too. It was called Green Eyes, and I don't know what's in that either. But I was gonna make the green beans, and I thought, you know what? I think one of these might be really good on these green beans. So I made Lillian come upstairs, and I said, you're going to try these two. I'm going to put just a little bit on my hand, and you're just going to taste it.
The seasonings.
See which one you like with the seasonings. And she picked the Diddy Bop. So now when I make the green beans, I add some Diddy Bop to them.
Diddy Bop green beans. I love it.
Yeah.
Were you ready to talk about reading?
Yeah.
Reading and books, which both you and I love, but you are so much better at it.
Well, I told my friend we were going to talk about books, and he's like, what? You don't know anything about that.
Christianne, who I think should be a librarian.
I should.
Yeah.
I really should.
So your goal, and so in 2022, you read 40 books, right? So we talked about that on your first podcast episode.
Yes.
And then you were setting your goal for 40 in 2023, but you were challenging yourself. It was like you were competing to beat that.
Yes.
Okay. Was your goal 40 in 2023?
My goal was 40 for 2023.
And what did you do?
62.
Jeez. What? Christianne.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened there. Honestly, I think the writer's strike in Hollywood really did me a huge favor because none of my shows were on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, Dustin and I have a lot of shows that we like to watch together. So I don't read a lot at night if we have shows that we're watching. So thank you.
Right. Thanks for the writer's strike. Okay. Did you say 62?
62.
What is that like? Are you a math person? What is that per month average?
Well, my mom kept trying to remind me, and I think it was like Well, because there's only, 52 weeks in a year? So
Wow.
a book or two a week.
And for people who hadn't listened to your first one, you're a physical book reader like
Yes.
me. We like physical books.
Yes.
I will say that, okay, so I always had Audible, so I was paying for Audible.
Sure.
And getting how many ever credits per month and never using them because when I had signed up, I didn't realize that I don't like listening to books, that I still like the physical book. Well, finally, I put my Audible on pause last year, October, November, December, because you can pause Audible for 3 months.
Okay.
And then, so it came back in January. And in those 3 months, I hadn't listened to any of the books that I had on the shelf. So I'm like, all right, I just got to cancel Audible.
Right.
So I canceled it. But before I did that, I'd use up a whole bunch of credits. So I have probably 25 books in Audible that I have to listen to.
Oh, wow.
But they stay there even if you cancel your Audible account. Okay. The ones that you lose are any books that you'd gotten for free for having an Audible account. You know how a lot of times they're like, hey, here's some free books. And if you put them in your account, now you're going to lose all those.
Right.
But anyway, I did find that because of having to read a couple of those free ones on Audible, one of the things that I ended up liking was I was listening to books when I was washing dishes, and kind of like when I do podcasts. So I was listening to it in the car. I was listening to it when I was washing dishes. I like to fall asleep to a TV.
Yeah.
And so I started doing my Audible, and I would put my timer on for like 15 minutes. And then if I was still awake when that would shut off, I would do another 15. So I'd listen to my book. So I did find that it was kind of nice to be able to listen to a book in times. Oh, and then I made myself there was one book that I didn't allow myself to listen to or read unless I was on the treadmill.
Oh.
And it was a very good book. I don't remember which one it was. And so I was like, oh, I got to get on the treadmill because I want to listen to my book.
Yeah, that would be some good motivation.
So that was another thing I was going to ask you is, when do you read?
Yeah, it kind of depends. So a lot of my reading happens during my lunch hour, because I work in Volga. My sister lives in Volga. My parents live in Volga. So I'll either go to my sister's house or I go to my parents' house for lunch and just hang out there for an hour. Mm-hmm. So I eat really fast. Well, I don't actually eat fast. Everyone knows that I don't eat fast. But I'll eat and then I'll read a couple of chapters during lunch. Sometimes I get kind of lucky and I actually get out of bed in the morning and I'm ready to go and I can read a chapter before I leave. Okay. That doesn't happen very often though. And then, I'll get home from work and sometimes Dustin will make supper. Mm-hmm. So if he's just going to take care of supper, if like we're grilling or something, I will just sit and read until we eat supper and then we watch our shows. And I feel like we've cut back on shows or like all of our shows haven't come back. So I do have a couple of nights that I'll sit and read if we're not watching something. Unfortunately, we both got really involved with Vanderpump Rules.
Is that a TV show?
Yes. And it's awful. And I feel like it's just this like shameful thing that I watch because it's ridiculous. And these people are ridiculous, but I can't stop watching them. So that kind of.
Well, at least you do it together.
Right. Right. Yes, we're in this together. Mm-hmm. And then, if I get fortunate enough that I have a weekend where we don't really have anything going on, I'll just hang out and read.
That's your thing. Yeah.
Dustin will watch NASCAR now that football's over and I don't watch NASCAR, so I sit and read.
Do you bring a book with you when you go places?
Yes.
Like, are you always like, I have to have a purse big enough for a magazine and a book.
Yep.
So, okay.
Yeah, I always have a book with me.
Yeah. Have you discovered any new authors or?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And I'm very excited about this too. My cousin, Jennifer, I talked about her last time too, because that's where most of my reading inspiration comes from and and all of that. She told me about an author by the name of S.A. Cosby. And I believe he only has 4 books out. Okay. And you don't have to read them in any kind of order. But I did, because that's what I do.
Because now you're a rule follower.
Well, I'm a stickler for these things. So I started with his first book. It was called My Darkest Prayer. And then I read Blacktop Wasteland, Razorblade Tears, and I just recently read All the Sinners Bleed. So S.A. Cosby, I believe he's from the South. I probably should have looked into this a little bit more, but his books are kind of that Southern noir, crime, gritty. It's pretty heavy stuff.
Is it the same genre? What genre is it?
It's kind of that crime. There's, something happens and it's trying to figure out what happened and who's involved and what's going on and who can you trust and different things like that. One of them, it's two fathers. They're both ex-cons, and their sons who were married were murdered, and they kind of come together even though they didn't necessarily agree with their sons and their life choices. And they don't really see eye to eye, but they come together to figure out what happened to their kids. And he's one of those authors. I was texting with Jennifer about it. Like, he feels like he's been writing for decades, and it's just so good.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved those books. I flew through those.
We should have Jennifer come on for an episode. You mentioned her last time, and if you're getting book ideas and stuff, she might be fun to talk to.
Yeah, that would be fun. She works at, and I don't remember which one now, but she's a librarian down in Lincoln.
Oh, she's in Nebraska.
Yep.
I was thinking Kansas City for some reason. Were there any books that you read that you didn't like? Did you stop reading any and go, I just can't do this?
So, yeah.
Okay.
And this was another conversation with Jennifer about this whole thing, because I had texted her when I was reading this book. The book was Sisters Under the Rising Sun by Heather Morris.
Okay.
And I had read, she wrote The Tattooist of Auschwitz, and Silka's Journey, I believe, is another one. And I really enjoyed those books. And this is kind of the same historical fiction, World War II. It's nurses from Australia, and there's a woman who gives her daughter to her sister or her sister-in-law, and to keep her safe, and they flee on this boat, and they kind of end up prisoner of war situation on an island. So, like, the story, which I think was based on a true story, I think this is something that actually happened. The story was so good, and I really wanted to like it. And just the way it was written, it was so hard to read. There was a lot of dialogue, and you didn't really know who was talking or what was happening and what was going on. And she kept telling me, and she's told me before, it's okay to not finish a book. And I understand that. But putting that into practice and actually saying, like, I'm not going to finish this.
Right.
I really struggle with, because I wanted to like it. So I did finish it. I don't think I've ever not finished a book. I'll usually give it a chance, and then I just move on with my life. But that one was really tough to get through. Fortunately, I don't run into that very often. I don't go outside of like historical fiction or like the psychological thrillers and the crime. And I really like those books. So I kind of stay in that lane, but I have read a couple that fall outside of that. I read The Lost Kitchen.
And
that was kind of a memoir, autobiography type book. And I actually read Prince Harry's book, whatever his name is, Spare.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, and then I did want to. I don't know, I've always kind of been interested in the royal family, and I'm familiar with all of it, and so I was like, I'll give it a try. And my sister too, she's like, that's not something that you usually read.
What'd you think of it? Long pause, slow pause.
Right? I don't know. It's so hard to, and I don't know if it's just because of all of the different voices and all the people that talk about him and Meghan and all the things that are happening. Like, I don't know. There's times where I'm like, quit whining.
Right. I'm sure. I will not read that book, but I can imagine that's...
It was interesting. And I don't want to discredit what he feels.
Yeah.
And what he perceives to be the situation with his family. Like, that's what he believes. And I don't know. Mm-hmm. I read it. I'm moving on.
There you go. I just finished, there's a TV show, and it's called Tokyo Vice.
Oh.
It's like, it's in Tokyo, obviously, and there's gangs, like mafia, the Japanese mafia and stuff.
Right.
And I got sucked into it right away. Loved the show. It's based on a true story by a journalist, Jake Adelstein. He's in Japan as an American journalist who went through the whole system to learn Japanese and through their journalist system. Very interesting. Loved the show. And I'm like, wait, it's a book? What? So I ordered this book from the library, which, if you remember, my sister Heidi is a librarian at the Lake Benton Library.
Yep.
And she messages me one day. She's like, a book came today. Did you order Tokyo Vice? This isn't your kind of, like, what? Did something happen? And I'm like, oh no, I ordered that book. Yes, I did. I started reading a few chapters. I'm like, oh, this is not as interesting as the TV show. And normally the books are better.
Right.
I got halfway through the book and just said, just finish reading it. That way you just know. Then you'll just know. I would recommend the TV show, but the book is just not, so.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And there are books that I've gotten halfway through and I'm like, I just can't. Yuck, I'm just going to stop reading it and move it on to something else. So,
right. Yeah, it's not very often that there's a shirt out there that I want that says the book was better, which is usually the case.
Right.
I read Lessons in Chemistry and then watched the series on Apple TV.
Oh, okay.
And I loved that book, and the series did a really good job.
Okay.
That's always kind of the risky thing too. It's like, this is going to be a series. And then it's like, just follow the book.
Yeah.
The book is fine. You don't need to change anything.
Right.
But yeah, that was a good one where the series was equally as good.
Kind of went along with the book.
Yeah.
Good.
I enjoyed it.
Well, I kept reading this book going, where's Sato? And where's Mama-san? And, all these people, they're not in there. Or if they are, they're in a version that's a little bit different and a different name, and you just don't quite catch on. And there's, like you had said about that one, there's all these names and things, and your mind is, you can't keep track. It's very difficult. So that's our, it's okay to stop reading a book if you have to.
Yeah. Did
you read a lot when you were a kid? I don't remember if I asked you that before.
Yes, I did.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I was always reading book. It was like the best thing ever from Pizza Hut.
The Scholastic Book Fair.
Well, and I saw a friend of mine from church sent me a link. I think it might be Dempsey's, if I remember correctly.
Oh, it is. I know
they
what you're
are starting like a kids reading thing. Mm-hmm. Can they do it for adults too?
You should ask them that. I did see that.
My kids aren't huge readers. Lillian will. She reads more than Preston does. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that they would. Oh, I'm going to read to get pizza, but I will read to get pizza.
I'll read to get pizza. So for people who don't know, Dempsey's is a pizza place in Brookings, but they also have a place in Watertown, South Dakota as well, right? Okay. Yep. What's your goal for this year then?
So I figured the 62 might have been a fluke.
There might not be another writer's strike
this
year. Okay.
I didn't know. So I said 50 for this year.
Where are you at so far? Because we're now in, mid-April?
Mid-April.
We're talking today.
I'm currently reading number 24.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Sounds to me like you'll meet your goal. That's great. I mean, you're halfway there.
Yeah. And the fun thing for me has been William Kent Kruger is one of my favorite authors. He's from Minnesota, and I had only ever read his standalone books. So we had Ordinary Grace and This Tender Land, and then I think fall last year, he released another standalone book, The River We Remember. And I pre-ordered it and I read that and loved it. I love all of his standalone books. Well, then Jennifer sent a box of books to my parents' house and we rifle through them. And she sent the prequel to Kruger's Cork O'Connor series. And I had never read any of the Cork O'Connor books, which he started writing in like 1998.
Oh.
And so she had said, if you haven't read the series, you can read this because it's a prequel. So this is all when Cork was a kid. Mm-hmm. So I read it. I think it's called Lightning Strikes, I think. And I loved it. And I don't know why I was surprised by that because I love this author. And it's Cork O'Connor. He's half Native American, half Irish. His dad was Irish, and he was the sheriff in, I think it's like Tamarack County, Aurora, Minnesota. I don't know if Aurora is a real place or not, but it's up by the Boundary Waters. So a lot of it takes place in the Boundary Waters and all this stuff. And Cork grows up to become sheriff too. And in that prequel book, it's when he's a kid and some kind of things that happen, pivotal things in his life that happen. And I thought, well, now I got to read this series.
Of course.
Well, there was like 18 books in the series.
Oh, geez.
And I'm thinking to myself, my husband is going to freak out if I go out and buy all of these books.
Well, that was my question. Do you buy all your books, or are you like, I love to support indie bookstores.
Right.
I'll buy journals there and all the other stuff all day long, but I try to check out as much as I can, except for cookbooks. Cookbooks are different. I'll go to the library, check them out. If I love them, then I will buy them.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But your books, though, do you buy them?
So I've always been a person who bought the books. Mm-hmm. And, you know, then I'd give it to my mom or I'd give it to my sister or I'd loan it to a friend to read. Yeah. But yeah, there's no way that Dustin would have been okay with me going out and buying all of these books. So I was like, I have a library card.
Yep.
I know I have a library card. Like, let's make sure that this is still good. And I got them all from the library.
Yeah.
So initially I would check out one. And then it's like, okay, I'm just going to check out like 2 at a time. And so for the longest time, that's all I read was these Cork O'Connor books. And I was just flying through this series and it was amazing and I loved it. And because of that, and because sometimes the book you want is checked out.
Yep.
And sometimes, no offense, it's checked out by slow readers.
Somebody like me who puts on the added renewal and it's another 3 weeks.
Just can I just have it quick and then I'll give it back to you?
Right. I only need 24 hours and I'll be done with this book.
So because of that, I thought, okay, well, I can't get this one yet and I can't jump ahead. Like I have to read these in order because there's things that happen. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go through my list. And so honestly, I haven't bought a book in a while. Mm-hmm. I think pretty much everything I've read so far this year, well, with a couple of exceptions, has come from the library. I'm going through my list, and if they have it, I'm grabbing it. So the book I'm currently reading, it's not a sequel. It's the second book from an author that I read before. Can't remember his name, Brandon Slocum, I think.
Okay.
So his first book I read was The Violin Conspiracy, another Jennifer recommendation, and I loved it. And this is his second book, Symphony of Secrets. It's music, it's mystery, I love it. So yeah, I've been getting everything from the library, and occasionally, my mom will pick up a book and she'll give it to me. Mm-hmm. The Nook has this thing called Books and Banter. It's kind of a book club, but it's a super casual book club, and they meet, I think it's Tuesday nights once a month. The last couple of books from that, my mom has picked up and then given to me. So there was Salt to the Sea, which was really good. It was a ship that sank and talking about like the survivors and kind of leading up to, so like way, way back, like Titanic time. Mm-hmm. And then I just read Other Birds recently, which is it was this magical kind of quirky little book. It was so good. I loved it.
Aw.
Yeah, it was so good.
Goodreads. Let's talk about Goodreads for a minute.
Yeah.
Because you can do it online or on an app in your phone. So for people who have it, great. You can add you can find books there, and that's where I have one of my lists anyway, because I was going to ask you, where do you put your list of books I want to read? So for me, I do have Goodreads, but I also have like a wish list on both, because I'm still part of the Brookings Library. I pay to be there because I'm out of the county, and then I have my free library card at Lake Benton, so
Sure.
I can choose when they have books available, but they kind of have the wish lists online with your account. Do you use Goodreads for your want to read? Is that where you keep track of that?
Yeah, so I pretty much exclusively use Goodreads. I have all of my want to read on there. And the nice thing about that is because, we can follow our friends, and they have that kind of list on your homepage that updates you on what your friends are up to and what they've finished and what they liked. And so I'll see like, oh, Stacy read this. That looks interesting. And I'll add that to my want to read list. And, I like that it keeps it all there. I have made lists just because, like with that Cork O'Connor thing, they get kind of buried in my want to read, and I'm adding new things. And instead of like trying to scroll and find and remember, so I just took a piece of note paper and made a list in order so I could check them off as I went and kind of keep track of where I was in that whole situation. If I'm scrolling through TikTok or Instagram or, one of the social media things, and I see something about, oh, these are my 5-star reads so far this year, I'll make a little list, and then I'll go into my Goodreads and see if I've added them or not, and kind of check out, like I'll read a little bit about it, and, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. I'll add it to my list. And
right, because it gives you, when you look up a book on Goodreads, it gives you the description of the book, and then you can also scroll down a little bit past the first like 3 or 4 reviews, and then it shows you the genres so that you can kind of know, oh, these are ones that sound interesting to me, or here's some that I really am never interested in, so then not to mark it. But for me on Goodreads, I'm just Stacy Mergenthal.
And I think I'm just Christianne Beringer.
Okay. Well, I'll look, because I only have 5 friends. Like Alice just says Alice, but you do say Christianne Beringer. So I can link to those in the show notes too if somebody's interested. But
yeah, I mean, definitely find me on Goodreads and follow me, and I'll follow you, and we'll get some book ideas there. But I just, I have my genres that I kind of stick to, and I don't venture out a ton. But just, I don't know, read what you want to read. And I have a tendency sometimes where I think like, oh, okay, I heard about this book, and I'll see there maybe aren't a lot of great reviews for it. And sometimes I'm like, oh gosh, maybe I don't want to read that. But it's like, well, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to like it. And just because it's not for them doesn't mean it's not for me. And kind of the same way. So just read what makes you happy. I get all these people that say, I'm not a reader, I don't like to read. You just haven't found the right book.
Right. All right. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thanks for having me again. This is so much fun.
I'm so glad that you came back, and you have so much to share with everybody. I love to talk to you. Love being around you, Christianne. Just, you're like a ray of sunshine.
Oh, and I miss seeing you, so I'm glad I got to come out here, and this is super fun.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good thing I'm not competing against Christianne, because I just finished reading Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens, which I think was only my 9th book so far this year. After we recorded, Christianne and I talked about how there's so many books that we want to read, and we add new ones to our list every week, that we'll never be able to read them all in our lifetime, which on the positive side means we'll never run out of books. Links to today's recipes and resources are in the show notes and also on randomsweets.com. Goodreads is for discovering books and keeping track of your reading if that's something that you like to do. But Libby and Hoopla are free digital resources provided by your public library for reading ebooks and magazines, comics, and for watching and listening to movies and TV, audiobooks, and music. So if you're interested in those, you can ask your public library if they offer either of those. And if you're interested in purchasing used books, Abe Books and Thrift Books are websites my sister Heidi and I have used. And lastly, in support of indie bookstores, be sure to check out the bookstore locator on Midwest Independent Booksellers Association website. Oh, and I linked to a helpful article on Good Housekeeping about freezing your fresh green beans, since Christianne and I are clearly not pros at that. If you aren't already, please subscribe to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens so you never miss an episode. I'll be back soon with Taylor and Cassandra Sumption, the South Dakota farmers behind Anthem Oats. Until then, I'd love to hear about the books that you've been enjoying and your summer go-to appetizers and sides. So message me on social media or email me at stacy@randomsweets.com. I'm your host, Stacy Mergenthal. Sweet wishes!